That morning when I came to, he seemed flustered, like he hadn't expected me to wake up at all. I tried to ask where my daughters were, but all the nurse said was, "Just rest, Mrs. Whitaker." But later that night, after the shift changed, I overheard him on the phone just a few feet from my bed. He must have thought I was asleep, but I caught every word. "Yes, ma'am, she pulled through. Yeah, she's awake now. Would you like to speak with her?" Then a pause.
Okay, understood.
"Just wanted you to know." I lay there under the cold, flickering lights, realizing my own daughter didn't even want to speak to me. The pain in my chest from that was worse than the stroke itself. I stayed in that ICU bed for 8 long days. No visitors came. No calls. No flowers. Nothing. When they finally released me, the only one who bothered to push my wheelchair was Carlos, the night nurse, and he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. A hospital transport dropped me at my driveway, but the key I'd always kept hidden in the ceramic frog by the steps had vanished. I sat there for 20 minutes waiting until the door swung open. But it wasn't Kelsey or Aaron, my girls. It was Rick, my son-in-law, looking startled with a Starbucks in hand. He mumbled something about flight delays and how they'd meant to check on me tomorrow. The second I stepped inside, I knew something was horribly wrong. Furniture had been moved, the walls were only half painted, and my wedding pictures were shoved in a box like old junk. On the dining table sat a real estate flyer with my house plastered across it. "Charming Southern home perfect for young families." I never agreed to that. I never signed a thing. But when I spotted the open folder on the kitchen counter, my gut turned. It was the power of attorney paperwork. Apparently signed 2 years earlier, back when I'd had a simple surgery. They'd told me then it was, just in case. Now they were using it to gut my life while I was laid up in a hospital bed. I sank to the floor, my legs too weak to hold me, and I don't know how long I sat there. When I finally came to, I grabbed Erin's old iPad from the charger by the pantry. She'd forgotten to log out of her messages. That's when I read it. "House goes on the market Monday. If she's not home, we'll start the assisted living intake." Let's be real. Mom was never great with boundaries. My own daughter wrote that. I realized they weren't trying to help me recover. They were clearing me out like some obligation they were tired of. I didn't scream or cry. I got up, pulled down my emergency stash of cash from the pantry shoebox, and opened the old notebook where I'd written every password I'd ever needed since 1998. If they thought I was going to sit there and let them put me away while they sold my life piece by piece, they'd forgotten who raised them. The next morning, when Rick left for whatever lie he'd cooked up, I went straight into what used to be the guest bedroom. It was now a staging area, half my clothes folded, half stuffed into donation bags. Nobody had asked me what I wanted to keep. This wasn't a mistake. It was a removal. I found the rest of their texts. Erin had messaged Kelsey once Mom's house sells. "We'll finally have room to breathe." Room to breathe? From what? The woman who worked 2 jobs after their father died, who paid off Rick's debts when his business tanked, who watched their kids every summer so they could sip margaritas in Cabo. I looked at that folder again, this time reading every line. The power of attorney they'd used was a broader one. Signed when I was high on morphine during my hip surgery. Kelsey had told me it was for insurance. Now they were using it to dismantle my life. I called James Putt, the lawyer who did my will, once my student, now running his own firm, and told him everything. He listened, then said, "You're not the first, Ellie, but we can fight this." James moved fast. He showed me that the document didn't actually allow them to sell the house without my permission. If I acted quickly, I could flip the script. So I did. We filed to revoke their power of attorney and reinstate my legal control. But I didn't want to keep that house. I wanted to clear it out myself, before they did. That night, I stood in my living room doorway, where we used to put up our Christmas tree. I looked at the dent in the carpet, where the couch had sat for 20 years. I told myself it would be the last time I ever looked back. I wasn't just leaving my house. I was leaving the idea that these people were still my people. They weren't. They were strangers wearing my daughter's faces. And the worst part, they thought I didn't have the guts to go first. Within 3 days, James and I had everything reversed. I changed the locks. When Rick came by, I told him through the Ring camera to collect his tools or I'd donate them. He came, took them in silence, and left the gate wide open like the coward he is. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not even James. I sold almost everything, except my photos, my late husband's watch, and a box of crayon drawings my daughters made back when they still loved me. The house sold in 11 days for cash, no contingencies. I shut down every bank account they had access to, opened new ones under my grandmother's maiden name, and cashed out the rest. My beat-up silver Corolla became my escape hatch. No one notices an old Corolla. The night before I left, I ate a peanut butter sandwich on a paper plate in my empty living room, sitting on a plastic folding chair. I wrote each daughter a note. No blame, just the truth. You showed me who you are. Thank you for the lesson. I left the keys back in the ceramic frog, poetic, I guess, and drove away before sunrise. No GPS, no plan, just me and the open highway. I wasn't running. I was removing myself. They wanted a life without me. Now they'd have one. By the time I crossed into Maine, half my gas tank and the grief were gone. I pulled into a tiny town called Elkport, picked because a billboard said the library was voted the friendliest place in the state. I checked into a rundown motor inn, paid cash, and introduced myself as Nora Whitman, retired librarian from Roanoke, widowed, no kids, just looking for a quiet new start. It was terrifying how easy it was. Nobody asked questions in a town that small. They just figured I was running from something. I found a furnished trailer behind a bait shop for $580 a month, paid in cash, no lease. Jim, the landlord, only asked if I smoked. I didn't. That was that. I shopped at the local mom and pop, got a library card under my new name, and started volunteering a couple days a week. Before long, people knew me as the nice lady with the soft voice who always asked about your mom. That's how I met Lily, a young waitress with a tired grin, and a little girl named Emma. That child stuck to me like glue, called me Nana Nora. After a couple weeks, I never corrected her. I babysat for free, helped Emma learn to read, and slowly the days hurt less. Every night, I tucked a notebook under my pillow where I wrote every lie I told, just to keep my story straight. No children, no Charleston, just Nora and her small trailer by the marsh. But at night, I'd still jolt awake, afraid someone would bang on the door and call me by my real name. I wasn't grieving anymore. I was hiding. And I knew, deep down, someone would come looking eventually. Back in Charleston, the moment my daughters landed and pulled into the driveway, their entire plan unraveled. When they called, I didn't pick up. When they showed up, the locks were changed, the sign was gone, the mailbox stuffed with final notices. They panicked. Erin called James, but he turned her away. Rick peeked through the windows. The house was stripped bare. In desperation, they filed a missing persons report. But the detective didn't buy their story once he learned they'd been on vacation in Maui while I lay in the ICU. Word got out fast. My nosy neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, told everyone on Facebook. The outrage spread. People dragged them online, called them vultures who tried to sell their mother's house while she fought for her life. Local reporters picked it up, then national ones did too. Kelsey got cornered in a Trader Joe's parking lot. Erin cried on the news. Nobody bought it. The internet branded me Grandma Ghost. Some called me a hero. Some said I was a villain for abandoning my family. I just watched it unfold quietly from my trailer, on Lily's old laptop. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt safe, invisible, owed nothing to no one. Almost 2 months passed. The headlines died down. I started to believe I might really be free. Emma turned 7 and I helped Lily throw a tiny party at the VFW. Someone filmed a clip, just a mom video, Emma opening gifts, me in the shot with a silly party hat. 3 days later, Lily came racing into the library, phone in hand. That video had blown up online. Someone matched my face with old news reports. Grandma Ghost found, it said. The comments were half praise, half hate. Worse, the clip tagged our little town. I sat down behind the library desk, my heart hammering just like when I'd been strapped to those ICU wires. Lily crouched beside me. I told her the truth. My real name was Eleanor Whittaker. I hadn't run from family. I'd escaped them. She didn't flinch. She just asked, "What do we do now?" But I knew it was already too late. Days later, I saw the silver Toyota, South Carolina plates, circling the lot. Erin got out, pretending she'd just stopped by for coffee, looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. She stood at the door, clutching a paper cup, waiting. I watched her for 5 minutes before I stepped outside. She stared like she couldn't believe I was real. "Mom, please don't walk away," she begged, her voice catching on the word mom. I felt that old reflex to comfort her bubble up. But I didn't move. "You're not a ghost," she whispered. "You're not done. You can come home." I looked her in the eyes and said, "I already did the funeral. You just didn't show up." She winced. Her tears came silent, desperate, but I let her stand there in it. When she tried to say they didn't know, I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You left me to die. then tried to pack me up like junk when I didn't. I didn't yell. I didn't comfort her. I told her I'd found a better life. Then I turned around and walked away. 3 days later, a plain envelope landed in the library drop box. Her handwriting. I didn't touch it at first. I thought it'd be an apology. But when I opened it, it was my own letter, the one I'd written in that hospital bed, my handwriting shaky. If I don't wake up, I forgive you. But if I do, please come. I'm scared. I'd asked Carlos to pass it on. He'd tucked it in my bag when no one came. And now here it was again, haunting me like a ghost of who I used to be. I didn't cry. I read it twice, folded it up, and slid it into the back of my notebook. Behind every lie that kept me free. Because I knew now I wasn't running anymore. I was surviving on my own terms. And this time, no one could take that from me.